Hi guys, welcome to the car. It's not my car. It's anytime ride-sharing car that you can find in Prague. Enter this promo code and you'll get 20 minutes of free drive time. Don't worry, I'm not filming this whole video in the car because that would be totally dangerous. But as you can see from today's title, I'm going to be talking about the difference between the US driver's license and the Czech driver's license. Stay tuned. Now, if there's one thing I've learned, it's that it doesn't matter where you are in the world, everyone is a crazy driver. Even you. I'm sure you've been a crazy driver at least once. I know I have. But honestly, I think that the amount of crazy drivers you have depends on the type of training you have, plus the experience you have driving and amount of drive time you have prior to getting your actual driver's license. So I know that varies according to country, that even varies according to state, and so some states have more crazy drivers than others. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Michigan. But now, just because I'm wearing a red sweater doesn't make me an Ohio State fan, and that is not what I'm talking about today. Today I'm talking about getting a Czech driver's license or getting a American driver's license and comparing them, because I got both. Disclaimer, and I really hate that I have to do this, but all of these things are based on my own personal opinions and experience. Maybe you've had a different one. Feel free to leave a comment in the box below if you have some other information or have had a different experience, but please remember to be kind to everyone. So, first things first, you cannot drive in Europe with your American driver's license unless you have an international driving permit. But even then, that's only if you're a tourist. So while yes, you can go rent a car and drive it in most places, with or without this international permit, it's none of my business. If you're a resident in Europe, you're not supposed to be driving with your American driver's license because the rules are different. Trust me, the rules are different. Now, I've heard that in some countries, and even in the Czech Republic, if you get into this like time slot within like the first couple months, you can just change your US driver's license over for a Czech one. I don't actually know anyone who's done this, and I've been here too long to have done that. And the people that I heard about who were doing this had to pay a lot of money to do it. Like 20,000 crowns, $1,000, a lot of money to do it. Not worth it in my opinion. Instead, if you want to drive in the Czech Republic and throughout the rest of Europe, you have to go through driving school again. So when my American driver's license was expiring last year in May, I decided, well, I can either fly back to the US and get a new license and then not be able to use it here in Europe at all, or I can bite the bullet, do Czech driving school, and then use it everywhere else in Europe. So that's what I decided to do. And oh, it was quite the experience. I don't know many people who've done it because a lot of people think, well, I live in Europe, I don't really need a car. But with all of these like new cool car sharing apps and things like this, I thought, well, you know, it's just kind of a good thing to have. So now that I've done both, let's compare these experiences. Let's start with age. In the US, you can get your learner's permit between the ages of 14 and 16, or 14 and 17, I guess, depending on the state you live in. I got mine in Ohio at like 15 and a half, and then I did my driver's training a few months later. There are some states though that require you to do your driver's training prior to getting your learner's permit. This learner's permit allows teens to drive with an adult who is a valid license holder. In most places, I believe this adult has to be your parent or guardian. In other places, I believe it just has to be someone over the age of 21. In Ohio, you can get your license when you're 16. After that, there are some rules like you can only have one other passenger in the car, except family. Family's kind of an exception. Then in different states, they have restricted hours when you're allowed to be driving if you're under 18. But like I said, again, this varies according to state. Now, if you're 18, you can go and get your learner's permit, and then the amount of time you have to have between getting your learner's permit when you're 18 and then getting your actual license when you're 18 also, like I said, varies according to state. In Ohio, you can get your learner's permit and then the next day just go do your driving test. There's no wait period in between. Also in Ohio, when you're 18, you don't have to do driver's ed training. You can just go take the written test and take the driving portion of the test, and if you pass, you can get your license. Honestly, I don't know anyone who has waited until they're 18 to get their license because it's just not a very common thing, especially where I grew up, like in rural Ohio, where you need a car to get around. Age in the Czech Republic. You have to be 18 years old to get a driver's license here. There is no learner's permit. You don't get to practice with your parents. None of that. When you turn 18, you can apply to driving school, and then you do all of your driving with your instructor. There's no pre-practice, unfortunately. Number of driving hours. The number of driving hours varies according to state. I think the greatest number of hours I've seen in the US is 50 hours of drive training with your learner's permit before you're allowed to take the exam. This includes the time you spend driving with your parents or guardian, and also the time you spend driving with your driving instructor. In Ohio, I did 8 hours with my driving instructor. These were broken up into different 2-hour increments. So spending 2 hours driving with my instructor, I got to drive not only in the countryside, but also in some cities, so I got the full range of experience. Now, when I got my learner's permit, I basically became my parents' chauffeur. Anywhere that they were going, anytime they were going someplace, I wanted to come purely because I wanted to drive. So I got in a lot of drive time. What can I say? I just liked driving. I still like driving. But you see this? I don't want to. What's with all these blind spots? I have eyes. Can I use them? According to the current Czech law, you have to do 26 driving hours with your instructor. You also have to do some classroom work for the theoretical part of the test. When I did my driver's training, I would go to drive with my instructor. And each time I drove with my instructor, it was for only 30 minutes. What can you possibly do in 30 minutes other than just drive around the block? I'm like, it's like seriously, it takes me longer to go to the driver's school building and then go back home than it does to do my actual driving. It's very frustrating. I mean, thank goodness I didn't actually have to learn how to drive, because at that point I had been driving for over 10 years, so I knew the basics of what I had to do. I just had to prove it to the instructor that I knew what I was supposed to be doing. Schooling. In the US, if you're under 18, you are required to take some sort of driver's ed training program. If you're over 18, again, it just depends on the state you're in. In Ohio, you don't have to. Now, the driver's ed training is this 24-hour course in which you watch safety videos, go over the student handbook, learn the rules and regulations of the road, learn what all the signs mean, and all of these sort of things that go along with driving. I did my driver's ed training course as an after-school program, and it was Monday to Thursday, and I think like 3 hours or something like that I went after school to take these classes. Then also you do the 8 hours of driving with your instructor. That's all part of the driver's ed course that costs between $300 and $400 depending on where you are in the country. As I mentioned before, right now it is currently 26 hours that you're required to drive with your instructor, but there's no set number of hours on how much time you have to spend doing the theoretical part. I think I did maybe 2 hours of theory with my driving instructor here in Czech Republic, but it wasn't really much of anything. However, I did get this massive book with about 800 questions in it. These were the questions that could be used on the written part of the exam. And anybody who knows anything about this knows that this is the worst part. Czechs and foreigners both dread this part of the test because these 800 questions are so hard. They're so tricky. There's questions that are almost exactly the same, but because they've changed one word, the answer is different. It's so tough. Thankfully, I downloaded an app and was able to practice on this app, and it was still tough. The driver's exam. consists of two parts, a written part and a practical part where you do the actual driving. The written part was just from the safety videos and the student handbook that we had. Easy, painless, yeah? Then I went and I did the driving portion of the test, and the first part we do is this maneuverability thing. You can check out a video of it up here if you don't know what I'm talking about. But you basically have to like pull your car through these cones and back up through these cones. That's pretty much it, yeah? Then you go out and you do a bit of driving through the city, making sure you stop at traffic lights correctly, have a correct distance between yourself and other cars, and aren't speeding or anything like that. If you pass the test, it's easy. You just go inside the DMV, fill out some paperwork, they take your picture, and you get your driver's license printed right then and there. Actually, they don't print your driver's license then and there anymore because now they have to send it someplace and it takes like 3 weeks. It's stupid, I know, but that's what it is now. Even when I was back in the US to get my driver's license renewed, they told me it's gonna take 3 weeks. So I just did the thing and they sent it to my parents' house, and this is my old one, it's expired. I was scheduled to take the exam at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday. So I went to the place I was supposed to take the exam a little bit early, and I walked in and there was like 50 people sitting in the hallway waiting to also take the driver's exam. Like, what? Seriously? So I waited like an hour and a half, and then I went in to do the written portion of the test. For this part I had a translator because they only offer this part in Czech, and I mean, my Czech's not that good to take this test. I mean, even Czech people have a problem taking this test sometime because of the wording, you know? So I took my test with the translator and it was fine. I passed, no problem. Then I waited more, about another hour and a half, and I finally got to go do the driving portion of my test. And so me, the instructor, another girl, and the guy, the examiner, I guess, all got into the car, and I drove for about 10 minutes, and then they said, pull over, stop the car, you passed, you can leave. Like, what? You're just gonna drop me off on the side of the road? That's a little crazy, but whatever. So then the next day I went to pick up the papers from my driving instructor. He said, yeah, don't worry, you can get your license, whatever. So I went to get these papers, and I picked up the papers thinking I would have like my license because they like took my passport and I needed to bring a photo and all of these things. And no, I had to go to another office and they're like, ah, yeah, it'll be ready in a month. Honestly, guys, I don't know what takes so long to print driver's licenses. But anyways, that was it. That was the exam. Written test, driving test, done, passed. And now I have the Czech driver's license. Endorsements and special licenses. Yes, you can get special licenses in the US, like a motorcycle license or a CDL. You can get licensed to drive hazardous materials or a school bus, things like this. It's kind of cool because my dad works for UPS, and so he's got all kinds of endorsements for his job, and I think the only one he didn't have once was a school bus one, and so his friends told him, just do it, you know, just get the school bus license, take the test. And so he did, and he passed, and now my dad is basically certified to drive whatever he wants in the US. So yeah, my dad's a professional driver. That's why I'm so good at parking, because we used to go practice parking and I would have to back into a parking spot, and if I wasn't perfectly in the middle, then I had to do it again. And yes, even as an American, I do know how to drive a manual car because we had them when I was growing up, and honestly, that's what I learned on. Yes, in the Czech Republic, just like in the US, they also have special licenses for things like bus driving or truck driving or driving a tractor, motorcycle, things like that. All of those things require taking extra courses, learning new things, taking another test. When you get those certifications, they will print them on the back of your license in this little picture. It's kind of cool. The US, they just print them like as words, not as cool. Okay guys, this has been my review of the US driver's license versus the Czech driver's license, and like I said, they're all based on my personal experiences. Maybe you've had a better experience. Maybe you've had a worse experience. Please feel free to leave your comments in the box below. Give it a thumbs up if you like this video. Subscribe if you want to see more nonsense. And until next time, good luck on your driving test.